The people of the motherland have come, and it's good that I am Superman of Doom Chapter 36. 2 undersea soldiers, each carrying a special metal chain, tied and dragged a white-haired young woman in a long dress out. Thomas, take care of our son Arthur. The silver trident weapon in his hand fell to the ground with a clang, and the white-haired young woman looked sadly at the young man holding a baby boy in the house. Dragged directly into the sea by 2 undersea soldiers. Atlanta, the youth of the local tower keeper shouted, rushed out with the baby in his arms, and saw only the vast sea surface, and he couldn't help but kneel to the ground. Rushing. The undercurrent swells, and 2 undersea soldiers drag Atlanta through the sea at great speed. Atlanta was sad and felt that she would be brought back to the underwater kingdom of Atlantis to sacrifice for the royal family. But at this time, the sea water in the shallow sea area suddenly broke open from top to bottom, and 2 bone spurs fell, like spearfish, penetrating the elite undersea soldiers with armor. Yes, it's too fast and fast. Without any chance of reaction, the elite soldiers swimming in the seawater at several times the speed of sound were killed in an instant. Atlanta raised her eyes in horror and saw a huge figure falling into the sea, like a fallen and mutated god, throwing away the 2 elite undersea soldiers. Her eyes flashing with the red light of destruction. Looked directly at each other, as if peeping into the end of the universe, a corner of destruction. ... Dividing line. P.S. There are not many new book issues left, please help with recommended tickets and monthly passes. 0041 New and Old Gods. The elite soldiers of the underwater kingdom Atlantis were instantly killed like fragile small fish and shrimp, and the high-end technological armor was completely shattered. The sea was stirring, and it was knocked open in a vacuum area that even the sea could not approach. And the 3-meter-tall bone spur existence violently threw the armored soldiers who penetrated the bone spur into the distance. What kind of monster is this? It is clear that such a tall and huge bone spur body is faster than the underwater people in the water, as well as this indescribable power of gods and demons. And the destructive aura that surrounds the surface of the exoskeleton. Atlantis Quasi-Queen. Atlanta was shivering, even if she resisted desperately in the face of multiple soldiers before. She followed her instinct and turned around and fled without the slightest hesitation. Escape. When encountering this force majeure existence, you can only escape. Phew. The turbid and turbulent seawater was not cut, and the seawater flowed along the plump body of the white-haired young woman without resistance, making Atlanta turn into a torrent. As an undersea person born in the kingdom under the sea of 10,000 meters, or a royal bloodline handed down from ancient times in Atlantis, Atlanta walks in water much faster than ordinary underwater people. Especially at this moment of life and death, Atlantis rushed to the far sea like a jet water arrow, and the movement speed instantly soared to Mach 8. What concept of Mach 8? Swim faster than an airplane. In the blink of an eye, Atlanta had broken free of her chains and fled to the sea several kilometers away. She looked back and saw that the bone spur monster that had rushed into the sea was still in place, and its huge body was about to be recovered by the swirling water. It works. After all, she is a person under the sea, and she can escape the other party in the water. Atlanta's heart surged with joy for the rest of her life, but she suddenly saw that the bone spur monster behind her made a slight backpedaling motion. Step on. Water. Boom. The next moment, it was as if tons of depth charges were detonated in the sea, and the seawater with a radius of 10 kilometers was turbulent. Atlanta, who was walking in the water at great speed, had an empty brain, and saw the bone spur monster in the distance blurrily disappear, bursting from the seawater to the sea area along the road. And was directly split into a vacuum path. Without waiting for Atlanta to react, a metal-hard, huge and terrifying exoskeleton palm forcefully poked out from the sea behind her, holding herself in the palm of her hand. No. 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 The white-haired young woman's beautiful face turned pale in an instant, struggling desperately. But the 5 fingers of the bone spur monster's hideous palm were 10,000 times stronger than the chain just now, like a huge iron tongs tightly clamping her waist, no matter how she resisted. It was difficult to pry the slightest. Even in the home field of the sea, the power between the two is still not on the same order of magnitude. Boom. The seawater in the sea area erupted again, setting off exaggerated waves outward, and the clouds above were also broken and shattered. Atlanta saw the landscape at a height of thousands of meters. And then continued to fall towards the sea at the end of the vision. It's over. It's over. It's all over. The would-be queen Atlanta is desperate. This devilish monster will not eat itself as food, right? Oh my god, she's really not delicious. Salty fish. In a word, farewell, Thomas, little Arthur. Atlanta was shivering, and the bone spurs had an unreasonable and exaggerated way of moving, and everywhere she passed, she couldn't open her eyes just by the strong wind that was constantly washing. Half a minute or so. Atlanta didn't know how far the sea had crossed, and the movement of this fall made a booming sound, apparently from the sea to a land location. The huge palm that was holding her waist loosened, causing Atlanta to fall on the beach. She opened her eyes with Venus and saw that she was on a desert island, and the extremely terrifying and powerful bone spur existence just now had disappeared. But the desert island is full of traces similar to craters, which means that this is the territory where bone spurs exist. Atlanta was shocked when she suddenly heard a loud cry from the side. Here, there is actually a baby. Atlanta hurriedly got up from the ground, and sure enough, she saw an infant still in her infancy, lying crying in the narrow cabin of an unknown aircraft. I don't know if it's because I'm worried that the baby has attracted the bone spur monster again, or if it's a new mother's emotion in my heart. Atlanta subconsciously stepped forward and held the baby from the cabin in her arms, but the crying did not stop, and the little face showed weakness. This is hungry? Atlanta hesitated, but still lifted the corner of her collar, revealing a rich and tender white in the sun. Under the sound of squashing, the baby stopped crying. On Atlanta's beautiful and feminine face, the corners of her mouth couldn't help but curve a wisp, as if she had forgotten the danger she was in. Wait a minute. Atlanta was shocked to look at the desert island she was on, and suddenly realized something. Why didn't the bone spur monster kill herself, but also took her alone to the territory where there were babies, and she happened to have food? How could there be such a clever thing? Boom! The sea surface and clouds broke open at almost the same time. The bone spur monster with the momentum of destruction rushed to a height of thousands of meters, carrying a hurricane and facing the sun. And no one noticed that the gray and terrifying face showed a ray of humanity. Cold, dazed, furious, struggling. Doomsday Meng, half out of control and half rational thinking, since in the dream, even the will thinking began to be assimilated by the Doomsday Day, what about in reality? He is now in a semi-lost state in the dream world, unable to wake up through his own mind. America, a small coastal town. Looking at the blood-red sky stained by flames and colorful clouds, an elderly fisherman in ordinary linen clothes stood on a simple wooden pier. The sea breeze blowing his white-haired bearded sideburns. Should I make a move? Now, it's just me who can kill monsters that are so powerful, right? The old fisherman muttered. Immediately, his cloudy eyes glowed with a divine light, and he smiled. When did I become so intimidating? New god? Who said that the time of the old gods has completely passed? It seems that we have been sleeping for so long that the world has forgotten us. Quote. At this moment, a powerful extraordinary momentum rejuvenated from the fisherman's elderly body under my, and even caused the sea in front of him to resonate with the waves of vision. The main thing is that the other party is still in the main field of the sea where he is best at fighting, and if he does not make a move, the old fisherman feels that he can't get by with his face. In addition, he is invincible on the sea and cannot be killed unless the other party has something like the tears of the man. It was like this 5,000 years ago, and it will be 5,000 years later. Not far from the town building tower. Wonder Woman Diana turned around abruptly and looked incredulously in the direction of the town pier. How is it possible? This is the breath of a living god. However, this breath is completely different from the god of war. It's another old god who still survives to modern times. Town Marina. The old fisherman waved his hand gently, and a huge wave crashed ashore, and the moment it touched his body, the old body disappeared as if it melted into the sea. The center of the earth hides the sea. The deep underwater necropolis of the Atlantis emperors. For thousands of years, the silence here has been broken again. The undercurrent surged and the sea water faintly condensed into the body of an old man, and he reached out to the stone throne sitting deep in the cemetery, holding the golden trident weapon held by the skull of the Atlantis emperor. First chapter, previous chapter 36 140th, next chapter, epilogue, table of contents.